Hi guys, after taking a look at William Gibson's approach to an Alien 3 script, I thought it would be fun to take a look at other writers' visions to see how they would play out Alien 3. The next writer that we're going to take a look at here is Vincent Ward along with John Fasano. Ward's take on Alien 3 would have taken the franchise into some really interesting territory. If you're not familiar with Vincent Ward's Alien 3 script, then perhaps you've heard of the idea he put across, in which the space station that Ripley would crash land on was mostly constructed of wood. I know it sounds like a crazy idea, but if this script would have been used and made into a movie, and if they would have been able to pull this off realistically, I think it really would have been a sight to see. So let's jump in and take a look at another Alien 3 movie that could have been. With Vincent Ward's approach, the film would start off showing a group of monks that are living on a man-made space station called Arceon, or it could be Archeon, that is made up of mostly wood, except it does have a metal frame and some windows. We get a quick shot of some monks working in a glass factory. This is also where we meet Brother John, who's a main character in the story, who has taken over doctor duties and is helping someone that's burned their arm. We now pick up with the monks on the surface though, when they notice something like a star coming towards them. As it turns out, this is Ripley's escape pod. It crashes into a lake on the surface of the space station, while a monk is able to pull Ripley from the craft before it starts to sink. Luckily, they're able to pull the escape pod itself ashore before it fully sinks as well. There is no sign of Newt. Ripley is all that is found aboard. This is where we find out that the monks are against technology. Many of them were terrified of the escape pod. If it weren't for Brother John, Ripley would have died in the crash. He was the only one that wasn't so afraid of the technologically advanced craft that he risked his life in order to enter it and save Ripley. We then come to a nightmare scene from Ripley, in which she is on a bed when an alien walks up beside her. She can't move or do anything, and the alien places its hand on her stomach and just looks at her. She screams in terror and then wakes up inside of the monk's monastery. As she is looking out the window, she sees fields of wheat, and then she's able to see monks moving her escape pod past the window. Brother John is in the room and Ripley is trying to warn him that there may have been an alien on board her ship. Next up, the abbot enters the room. He is the one who is in charge of the monks on the station. Ripley begins to tell the abbot about the alien threat, thinking that there is an alien that was inside the escape pod. She even notes that it may have been what killed Newt. The abbot thinks she's crazy. As a matter of fact, he sees her as a bad omen bringing technology with her. He even thinks she is lying about her stories from LV-426. He tells Ripley that the Earth has already been destroyed and that the event that caused it led to the monks going off into space and rejecting technology. The abbot then leaves with Brother John and locks Ripley into the room, telling John that he should not talk to her or have any contact at all with her. Later on, we pick up with Brother John and another monk who's come to him with a sick animal. It turns out that the monk's doctor had passed away and Brother John had taken up the service as a new doctor. He wasn't a vet, but he was the next closest thing, so he decided to help the monk with the animal. It turned out to be a small sheep that had fallen over and wasn't moving. He could tell that its heart rate was elevated, and then he noticed that there was a slimy mucus-like substance around the sheep's mouth. The sheep then began to violently convulse, with Brother John doing everything he could to try to hold it down. Eventually, even John is thrown free of the small sheep when it explodes, spraying the two monks with entrails and blood. Now here is the crazy part of this story. In Vincent Ward's draft, the alien was able to take on characteristics of not only the creature it was birthed from, but also from its surroundings. They described the alien as a chestburster with tiny razor teeth and an elongated head. It's also covered with a downy, gore-matted wool, just like a sheep. This alien was a quadruped as well and walked on all fours. Before the alien could escape the hysterical monk who just watched his sheep explode, he was able to take a pitchfork and kill the alien. After this incident, the abbot is convinced that Ripley has brought evil into their small space station, so she is held for a quick trial. They find her guilty and confine her to the lower levels of the planet into a wooden dungeon. When the monk workers are boarding up Ripley into her cell, they even throw in a memento from her escape pod for her, which turns out to be the head from Newt's doll. Luckily for Ripley, Brother John thinks there's some truth to her stories and decides to go down into the dungeon to talk to her. It is during this time that we get the first grown Xenomorph attack on the monks. The monk is in a shared lavatory with outhouse-like toilets lining the wall when he is attacked from below. The draft even goes as far to say as the monk feels it tugging at his bowels when something snakes up his rectum and hooks into his lower intestine. There is then a terrible ripping sound as the monk is pulled violently down out of frame. Just horrifying. We now get back to Ripley, who is in her cell while she is talking to an android named Anthony. We find out that Anthony unfortunately told the monks that he was an android, and because they are so against technology, they locked him up in the dungeon. Anthony is now trying to convince Ripley to eat something, but she isn't hungry, saying that her stomach hurts. This will become pretty important later on in the story. We all know in Alien 3, Ripley had an alien queen inside her, but there's much more to the story here. Ripley and Anthony have a discussion in which Anthony is trying to convince Ripley to eat so that she can take her fight to the alien. They even go so far as to discuss Ripley's past experiences with androids. Anthony then shows Ripley charcoal sketches on the walls of different demons that he has seen in his dreams, further convincing Ripley that the android has lost his mind. We then have Brother John enter the cell. He is surprised to see Anthony because he hasn't seen him in over 15 years. Brother John is trying to convince Ripley to help him stop the alien, but she knows it's pointless as the monks have no weapons or technology on the station. John tells Ripley about the sheep, and they discuss the possibility of the alien to mimic the host that it comes from. After this, Ripley does decide to join John and help him with the alien threat. They decide that there is a, quote, technology room in the station that must contain some form of technology that would be needed to maintain the atmosphere on the station. As they are moving through the station, Ripley is filled in that the monks started out as an anti-technology group back on Earth that gained momentum after a horrible computer virus wiped out a huge portion of data that was stored on the planet. This rejection of technology was considered a threat by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and the monks were sentenced off-world to the station. We also find out that the space station is divided in the middle by a large lake, and that the monks consider the areas above the lake to be considered heaven, with the areas below to be considered hell, containing the dungeons and workings of the space station. Elsewhere on the space station, there are monks tending to a wheat field as they are being watched by the abbot. This leads to a really nice setup for a Xenomorph attack. As the abbot is watching the monks move through the field by noticing the wheat dropping in front of them as they walk, he notices something else moving through the wheat extremely fast. Before he can even say anything, the alien has already killed one monk and is ripping through all of the other monks without any resistance. They have no weapons beyond farm tools, which are no match for a Xenomorph. Even crazier here is that we see that this Xenomorph does more than just mimic its host. It can adapt to its surroundings. It changed its color to blend in with the wheat field and became a golden color. During the attack, the acid from the alien sets the fields on fire, so we get another huge fire on the wooden space station. While the group is moving towards the technology room, Anthony the android has a vision in which he is attacked by a horde of medieval demons. In the vision, the demons are fish-faced demons and man-headed bird demons. They fly around him, grabbing hold of his limbs. He then notices a sheep that's standing near to him when it opens its mouth to reveal razor-sharp fangs and sinks them into his ankle. Ripley then notices that the android is flailing around at nothing and tries to help him out. They end up falling off of a ledge. This finally stops Anthony's vision and he loses consciousness. When he comes to, he discusses this vision with Ripley, explaining that his brain is patterned after a human brain, and this is most likely the cause of his visions. He says he sees images of monsters, and Brother John says that they stand for evil yet to come. It is a vision of the future. The abbot is able to escape the fields and ends up meeting with the group. And that is where we're going to call this video. I will pick right back up with part 2 of the Alien 3 that could have been from Vincent Ward. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, if you could leave a like, it helps out the channel so much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not subscribe for all the future Aliens goodness to come? Thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you next time.